Don't drink that, sir. Please.
A black girl just slapped a champagne glass out of a billionaire's hand. Crystal hit marble, shattered. 300 guests went dead silent.
What the hell? Grab her!
Security tackled Brianna Wallace face first into the floor, knee on her back, cheek against cold stone. Edmund Henderson stared down at her.
Who is this girl?
Nobody, sir. Catering staff.
Catering staff.
Why?
Brianna, pinned, bleeding from the lip, voice steady.
That champagne had a pH shift. The color was off by 2 shades. Someone added something that wasn't supposed to be there. You don't have to believe me.
The room held its breath. Edmund looked at the shattered glass, then at the puddle, then, slowly, across the room. Guest by guest, face by face. And, for the first time in his life, he didn't trust a single person staring back. Man, that's not even the crazy part. How she got there? That's the real story. But this story doesn't start in a ballroom. It starts 3 months earlier. 5:14 a.m. A one-bedroom apartment on the east side of the city. The kind of block where the streetlights flicker and nobody calls to fix them. Brianna Wallace stood at an ironing board she'd borrowed from her neighbor 2 years ago and never gave back. White button-down, black apron, pressed sharp. Because that's the thing about Brianna. She didn't have much, but what she had looked right. She packed 2 textbooks into a tote bag. Food Chemistry 301, Advanced Organic Compounds, Final Semester, State University Extension Program. 4 years of night classes and bus rides and reheated coffee, and she was almost done. First bus at 5:40, transfer at Vine Street, second bus to Franklin Avenue. By 6:30, she was behind the line at Duke's Diner, prepping eggs, slicing onions, moving fast. Gerald, the old head cook, watched her work and shook his head. Girl, you chop faster than my ex-wife's lawyer. Your ex-wife's lawyer didn't have a chem final next week. Gerald laughed, slid her a coffee, black, no sugar, the way she always took it. That was Brianna's morning, every morning. No days off, no complaints. Not because she was some kind of saint, but because she'd learned a long time ago that nobody was coming to save her. So she saved herself. Quietly, relentlessly, without asking anyone to watch. Tuesdays and Thursdays, after the diner shift, Brianna volunteered at the Elm Street Community Resource Center. Not glamorous. Fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, a coffee machine that tasted like regret. But people came here when they had nowhere else. To fill out aid applications, food assistance forms, housing paperwork. The kind of forms designed to make you give up on page 3. Brianna was good at those forms. Patient. She'd sit with someone for an hour, translating government language into human language, making phone calls, pushing through hold music that could break a person's spirit. That Tuesday, she noticed a woman in the corner. White, early 30s, thin, too thin, wearing a coat that had no business being on anyone's body past October. She was holding a sleeping toddler on her lap, a little girl with blonde curls clutching a stuffed rabbit. The rabbit was missing an ear. The woman had been sitting there for almost an hour, hadn't moved, hadn't approached the desk, just sat there, like she was trying to figure out if she was allowed to ask for help. Brianna walked over, slowly, the way you approach someone who might bolt. "Hey, I'm Brianna. You need help with a form?" The woman flinched, looked up, eyes red, hollow. I'm not sure I qualify for anything. Let's find out together. What's your name?" Chloe Davis." The little girl stirred, blinked at Brianna, held up the one-eared rabbit. "This is Captain." Brianna smiled. "Hey, Captain. Tough day?" Rosie nodded seriously. "He lost his ear in a war." "A hero. I respect that." Chloe almost smiled. Almost.
Brianna sat down, pulled out the food assistance form, started filling it out with Chloe. Gently, no rushing, no judgment. Learned the basics. Husband passed 2 years ago. No family support. Bouncing between church shelters. Nursing background, but her license lapsed. Couldn't afford reinstatement. Chloe's hand shook the entire time. Brianna didn't mention it, just kept writing.
When they finished, Brianna walked Chloe to the food pantry next door, carried Rosie on her hip so Chloe could manage the bags. Rosie rested her head on Brianna's shoulder like she'd known her forever. At the door, Chloe paused. "You didn't have to do all that." "I know." "Then why?" Brianna shifted Rosie's weight on her hip, shrugged. "Because Captain's been through enough today." Chloe laughed. Small, broken, but real. And as she turned to leave, Brianna noticed something. A thin gold chain around Chloe's neck. A small pendant, old, delicate. The letter H. Brianna didn't say anything, didn't ask, just filed it somewhere in the back of her mind. That night, kitchen table, textbook spread out, highlighter in hand. Chapter 14. P. H-reactive indicators in liquid solutions. She highlighted a line about color shifts in acidic compounds, how certain substances alter the visual tone of a liquid by barely 2 shades. Undetectable to most people, obvious to anyone trained to look. Gerald texted, "You're going to ace that final, kid." She smiled, fell asleep on the textbook. She didn't know it yet, but that chapter was going to save a man's life. Over the next few weeks, Brianna and Chloe fell into a quiet routine. Tuesdays and Thursdays. Same plastic chairs, same bad coffee. Chloe would come in with Rosie on her hip, and Brianna would already have a sandwich waiting. Always casual about it. "Diner made too many. You want one?" Like it wasn't coming out of her own lunch. Chloe saw through it every time. But she took the sandwich, because pride doesn't feed a 3-year-old. They didn't talk much at first. Brianna wasn't the type to push, and Chloe wasn't the type to open. But there was something between them. The kind of trust that builds not from words, but from showing up, again, and again, and again. One Thursday, Chloe came in without Rosie, eyes swollen, hands shaking worse than usual. They denied it. Brianna didn't need to ask what. The food assistance application. On what grounds? Inconsistent residential history. Chloe laughed, the kind of laugh that has no joy in it. "Because I've been homeless, Brianna. That's the inconsistency. I don't have a consistent address because I don't have an address." Brianna sat down, pulled out her phone, started calling. First office, 40 minutes on hold. Transferred, disconnected. Second office, a recording. Our office hours are Monday through Wednesday. Third office, finally, a clerk. Brianna explained the situation, calm, clear, professional. The clerk's response? The appeal process takes approximately 90 days. She doesn't have 90 days. The shelter she's staying at has a 30-day limit. She's on day 22. I understand, ma'am. Unfortunately, that's the standard processing time. There's nothing standard about a mother and a 3-year-old sleeping on a cot. Silence on the other end. Then, "I'll flag it for review. That's the best I can do." Brianna hung up, looked at Chloe, didn't sugarcoat it. 90 days, maybe faster. I flagged it, but I'm not going to lie to you. Chloe nodded slowly, stared at the floor. Her fingers went to the gold chain around her neck, the one with the H pendant. She held it like a rosary. Quiet for a long time. Then, barely above a whisper, "I used to have a family, Brianna. A real one. Big house, holiday dinners. A father who could have fixed all of this with one phone call." Brianna didn't move. "What happened?" "I fell in love with the wrong person. At least, that's what they told me. And when I chose him over them," she swallowed, "they chose their pride over me. My father decided I wasn't worth keeping." She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Fast. Like she was embarrassed that the tears existed. Brianna put her hand on Chloe's shoulder. Didn't say, "It'll be okay." Didn't say, "You're strong." Didn't say anything at all. Just stayed. Sometimes that's enough. That evening, Brianna's phone buzzed. Denise Palmer, her catering supervisor. 50-something, black, sharp as a razor, and twice as protective. Big job next month. Engagement party at the Crestfield Hotel. Black tie. Henderson Capital Group. Biggest client of the year. Pay? Triple rate. Brianna did the math. Triple rate meant tuition. Meant one less month of drowning. "I'm in." Denise paused. Then, voice lower, "Brianna, listen to me. These people, they don't see you. You're furniture to them. Don't give them a reason to look. Do your job, get your money, go home. That's the win. Got it? I mean it. Invisible. In and out." Brianna hung up, looked at her textbooks, looked at the sandwich she'd packed for tomorrow, the one she'd pretend was an extra from the diner. Invisible. Yeah. She knew how to do that. She'd been doing it her whole life. Nah, hold on. This is crazy. She's working 2 jobs, going to school at night, giving away her own lunch. And the system says no to her friend over a paperwork error? Bro, put yourself in her shoes. Would you still show up tomorrow? Because she did. The night of the gala. Brianna had never seen a building try this hard to remind you that you didn't belong. The catering van pulled up to the back of the Crestfield Hotel. Service entrance. Concrete loading dock. Fluorescent tubes buzzing overhead. The team unloaded in silence. Trays, napkins, glassware. Through a gray corridor that smelled like bleach and industrial soap. Then someone opened a door, and it was like stepping into another planet. The ballroom hit her all at once. Gold leaf on the ceiling. Chandeliers the size of small cars. Orchid arrangements on every table. White. Perfect. Probably flown in from somewhere that doesn't have a bus route. The air smelled like expensive perfume and old money. Brianna did the math in her head. One of those flower arrangements cost more than her rent. There were 40 tables. She kept walking. Staff briefing in the service kitchen. Quick, efficient. The event coordinator rattled off the details. Tonight was the engagement celebration for Garrett Henderson and Lydia Moore. Garrett, 30, polished, Edmund Henderson's only son. Lydia, 28, old money family, beautiful in a way that felt practiced. The guest list included senators, media executives, hedge fund managers, people who had people. Brianna was assigned champagne service, head table. Denise caught her eye across the room, gave her a look that said everything without saying a word. Invisible. In and out. Brianna nodded. She picked up her tray, walked through the service door into the ballroom, head down, shoulders back. The way she'd learned to move in spaces that weren't built for her. Present enough to work, absent enough to not exist. On her way to the head table, she passed the foyer. A curated display of Henderson family photographs lined the wall. Black and white portraits, legacy shots, generational wealth frozen in silver frames. Edmund shaking hands with a former president, Garrett as a boy on a sailboat, family Christmases in houses that looked like hotels. Brianna didn't stop. She wasn't supposed to look. She was furniture, remember? But one photo caught her peripheral vision, and her feet stopped before her brain could tell them not to. A young woman, maybe 18, white dress, garden party, smiling. Not the posed kind, the real kind. The kind of smile that doesn't know what's coming. And around her neck, a thin gold chain, a small pendant, the letter H. The nameplate beneath the photo read, Charlotte Henderson, 2010. Brianna's stomach dropped. Charlotte. Chloe. Same cheekbones, Same sad eyes. Except in this photo, they weren't sad yet. Same chain. Same pendant. The one Chloe held like a rosary every time the world got too heavy. Chloe Davis was Charlotte Henderson, Edmund Henderson's daughter. The billionaire's daughter was sleeping on a shelter cot, feeding her kid with food pantry bags, getting denied by the same system her father could have dismantled with a single phone call. Brianna stared at the photo. Her tray trembled slightly.
Wallace, head table, now. She blinked, turned, walked. But something had shifted behind her eyes. A gear turning, a question forming, one she couldn't unask. If he's this powerful, why is she that broken? She didn't have the answer, not yet, but she was standing in the same room as the man who did. The party moved like a machine.
Champagne flowed. Laughter bounced off marble. A string quartet played something classical that nobody was actually listening to. Guests orbited each other in slow, calculated patterns. Handshakes that meant deals, smiles that meant leverage, small talk that meant nothing and everything at the same time. Brianna moved through it like a ghost. Tray up, eyes down, refill, pivot, repeat. But she was watching. Edmund Henderson stood near the head table. Tall, commanding, the kind of man who didn't raise his voice because he never had to. He laughed with old friends, senators, investors, men who called each other by last names. But Brianna noticed something the guests didn't. Every time someone mentioned the word family, something behind Edmund's eyes tightened. Just for a second, like a door slamming shut. Garrett Henderson, the groom-to-be, hovered near his father. 30 years old, tailored suit, perfect hair, eager, nervous. He kept glancing at Edmund like a kid waiting for a grade. Every gesture was slightly too polished, every laugh half a beat too late. He wasn't celebrating. He was performing. And then there was Lydia Moore. Brianna couldn't explain it, but something about Lydia made the hair on the back of her neck stand up. Lydia was beautiful. Obviously. The kind of beautiful that makes a room rearrange itself. She moved through guests like she was hosting, not attending, touching arms, tilting her head, laughing at exactly the right moments. But her eyes weren't laughing. Her eyes were working. Brianna watched Lydia lean toward a man she didn't recognize. Silver-haired, mid-50s, standing at the edge of the room like he was trying not to be seen. He wasn't on the seating chart. Brianna had studied the layout during briefing. She remembered faces. This one wasn't supposed to be here. Lydia whispered something to him. Short, precise. The man, Victor Ashland, nodded once. No smile. No small talk. Just a nod. Then Lydia's lips moved again. Brianna was close enough, refilling a water glass 2 feet away, to catch 3 words. After the toast, not before. Brianna's hand stalled on the pitcher, just for a second. She filed it, kept moving. Backstage, service kitchen, controlled chaos. Brianna was restocking her tray when it happened. Trevor Banks, mid-20s, white, hired through connections, the kind of guy who wore his confidence like a borrowed suit, shouldered past her. Hard. Deliberate. 3 champagne flutes hit the floor, glass everywhere. Watch it, Brianna stared at him. You walked into me. No, sweetheart, you were in the way. That's kind of your thing, right? Being where you don't belong? The kitchen went quiet. Other servers looked away. The dishwasher, an older black man, gripped his sponge but said nothing. Because what could he say? In this building? At this event? Then Denise appeared. She didn't rush, didn't raise her voice, just walked up to Trevor with the kind of calm that's more terrifying than any shout. You break my glasses, you're paying for them. You talk to my staff like that again, you're not paying for anything, because you won't be working. We clear? Trevor opened his mouth, closed it, looked around for backup, found none. Yeah, we're clear.
He walked away. Denise watched him go, then turned to Brianna, voice low. You good? I'm good. Don't let them shrink you. Do your job, get your money, go home. That's the win tonight. Brianna nodded, but her mind was somewhere else. On a photo in the foyer, on a pendant, on a woman named Chloe, who used to be Charlotte, on a whisper between Lydia and the man who shouldn't be at this party.
She grabbed a broom, swept the glass, kept moving. 10 minutes later, service corridor. Brianna leaned against the wall and pulled out her phone. She called Chloe. 3 rings. Hey, how's Rosie's cough? Better. She ate some soup. She's sleeping now. A pause. You okay? You sound weird. Brianna opened her mouth, closed it. The words were right there. Chloe, I'm at your father's party. I saw your photo on the wall. Your real name is Charlotte. I know everything. But she didn't say it. Because it wasn't her story to force open. It wasn't her place to drag Chloe back into a world that had thrown her away. Not like this. Not over the phone. Not while she was standing in a service corridor wearing an apron. I'm fine. Long night. I'll bring you some food tomorrow, okay? The good bread. You don't have to. I know. But Captain deserves carbs. Chloe laughed softly. Good night, Brianna. Night. She hung up, stared at the wall, took a breath. Then she went back inside. The moment arrived faster than she expected. Edmund took the stage. The orchestra played a soft intro. Garrett and Lydia stood beside him. Picture perfect. 300 guests raised their glasses. In the kitchen, the event coordinator grabbed Brianna. Head table needs a replacement tray. Last minute. Go. Now. Brianna picked up the tray. 6 fresh flutes. Walked out. She set the glasses on the head table. One by one. Precise. Invisible. Just like Denise taught her. Then she saw it. Edmund's glass. The one marked with a small gold ribbon. Because, of course, a billionaire gets a special glass. Sat at the center. She reached to place the last flute beside it, and her eyes caught something. The color. It was off. Barely. 2 shades lighter than the others. The kind of difference nobody notices unless they've spent a semester studying pH reactive indicators in liquid solutions. Unless they've highlighted a passage about how certain compounds alter the visual tone of a fluid. Undetectable to most. Obvious to anyone trained to look. Brianna's brain fired. Fast. Clinical. That color shift wasn't temperature. Wasn't a different vintage. That was a chemical reaction. Something had been added to this glass that wasn't in the others. Her hands went cold. After the toast, not before. Lydia's whisper, Victor's nod. The man who wasn't on the seating chart. The glass that looked almost right, but wasn't. It hit her all at once. Edmund was reaching for the glass. 300 people were raising theirs. The orchestra was swelling. Garrett was smiling. Lydia was watching. Brianna had about 4 seconds. She was a catering server, $11 an hour, black, invisible, nobody. She had everything to lose. And she moved anyway. This is the moment you saw at the beginning. But now you know why. Now you know who Brianna Wallace is. You know she rides 2 buses before dawn. You know she gives away her lunch and calls it an extra. You know she memorized pH tables while falling asleep at a kitchen table. And you know she recognized a dead woman's pendant on a billionaire's wall and said nothing, because it wasn't her secret to tell. So when she crossed that ballroom floor, every instinct screaming, "Don't, don't, don't," and slapped that glass out of Edmund Henderson's hand. She wasn't being reckless. She was being Brianna. The glass shattered, the room erupted, security slammed her down, guests screamed. You already know what they called her. You already know how they treated her. But here's the part you didn't see before. Edmund. After the chaos, after the shouting, after 3 men in suits pinned a 26-year-old girl to the floor, Edmund Henderson raised his hand. One hand, palm out, and the room stopped. Let her speak. The head of security, Craig Monroe, built like a refrigerator, hesitated. Sir, she could be... I said let her speak. They loosened their grip. Brianna stood, slowly, blood on her lip, uniform torn at the shoulder, hands steady. She looked Edmund in the eyes. No fear, no performance, just facts. I study food chemistry, sir. That champagne had a pH shift. The color was off by 2 shades. Someone added something that wasn't supposed to be there. Edmund stared at her. You're telling me, based on a color difference, that someone tampered with my drink? I'm telling you, that compound doesn't occur naturally in champagne. Test it. If I'm wrong, I'll walk out the back door and you'll never see me again. Silence. Edmund looked at Craig. Get the glass tested. Every piece. Every drop on that floor. Tonight. Craig nodded, moved fast. Brianna exhaled. For the first time in 3 minutes, she breathed. But Lydia, standing 2 feet behind Garrett, hadn't moved, hadn't gasped, hadn't reacted at all. And Brianna noticed. It took 11 minutes for the room to decide what Brianna was. Not a hero, not a concerned citizen, not a food science student who saw something wrong and spoke up. A threat. While the glass was being analyzed in a back office, the story was already being rewritten in the ballroom. Whispers moved faster than champagne. Did you see her grab him? I heard she had something in her pocket. Catering staff. You never know with those people. Those people. Brianna stood in the service corridor. 2 security guards on either side, not touching her, but close enough to make it clear she wasn't free to leave. She could hear the party resuming on the other side of the wall. Music, laughter, like nothing happened. Like she never happened. Meanwhile, in a hallway that the security cameras barely covered, Victor Ashland moved. Quick. Practiced. The kind of movement that comes from doing something you've planned for weeks. He reached the staff locker area. 12 metal lockers. No locks. Catering staff didn't get locks. He found the one with Brianna's name tag on it. Opened it. Placed a small glass vial inside, tucked behind her tote bag, next to her textbooks. Closed the locker. Walked away. 30 seconds. Done. By the time he was back in the ballroom, he was holding a gin and tonic and laughing at a senator's joke like he'd been there the whole time. It didn't take long after that. Craig Monroe, hotel security chief, got a tip. Anonymous. Check the girl's locker. She's got more than textbooks in there. Craig didn't question it. Didn't ask who called. Didn't wonder why an anonymous tip arrived 11 minutes after an incident at a party full of powerful people with powerful reasons to control the narrative. He just moved. 2 guards. The service corridor. Brianna's locker. They opened it in front of her. And there it was. A small glass vial. Clear liquid. Sitting right next to her Food Chemistry 301 textbook. Like it was placed there by someone who wanted the irony to sting. Craig held it up. What is this? Brianna stared at it. Her face went blank. Not guilty blank. Confused blank. The look of someone seeing something that shouldn't exist. That's not mine. It was in your locker. I've never seen that before in my life. Someone put it there. Right. Someone just happened to plant evidence in your locker. Yes, that's exactly what happened. Craig looked at her like she was wasting his time. Cuff her. What? I didn't... Ma'am, we found a substance in your locker, consistent with tampering. You're being detained. They handcuffed Brianna Wallace in a service corridor of the Crestfield Hotel, under fluorescent lights, next to a mop bucket. Her catering badge, the one she'd ironed her uniform for, the one she'd ridden 2 buses for, was ripped off and dropped on the floor. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She looked Craig dead in the eyes and said, I saved his life. And this is what you do? Craig said nothing. walked her to the security office, sat her in a metal chair, cuffed her wrist to the armrest, closed the door. Back in the ballroom, Lydia Moore gave the performance of her life. Her eyes were red, her voice trembled. She clung to Garrett's arm like the ground beneath her might open up. Oh my God, Garrett, that girl was right there, right next to your father. She could have... It's okay. It's okay. She's been caught. But what if she wasn't alone? What if there are others? She pressed her face into Garrett's chest, shook slightly. Perfect. Then, over Garrett's shoulder, she found Edmund. Thank God you're safe. That girl must have been working with someone. Who knows what she was planning? Edmund nodded slowly. But something wasn't sitting right. He replayed the moment. The girl hadn't panicked, hadn't run. She'd looked him in the eyes and spoken like a scientist. pH shifts, color variations, compound analysis. That wasn't the language of someone who plants poison. That was the language of someone who identifies it. And Lydia, his future daughter-in-law, standing right behind Garrett when the glass shattered. Everyone in the room had flinched, gasped, screamed. Lydia hadn't moved. Not a flinch, not a blink. Like she already knew something was going to happen and was waiting for it to be over. Edmund filed that, said nothing. But the doubt from the cold open, the one that crept in when Brianna told him to look around the room, hadn't gone away. It was growing. Security office. Brianna sat alone, metal chair, fluorescent light, wrist cuffed to the armrest. Her lip had stopped bleeding, but the swelling hadn't gone down. She replayed everything. The whisper between Lydia and Victor. After the toast, not before. The man who wasn't on the seating chart. The glass that was 2 shades wrong. The vial in her locker that she'd never touched. It was a setup. Clean, professional, and perfect. Because who would believe her? A black girl in a catering uniform against the future wife of a Henderson? She thought about Chloe, about Rosie, about Captain, the one-eared rabbit, about the food assistance form that got denied, about the system that said 90 days to a mother with 8 days left. Different buildings, different problems. Same answer. You don't matter enough for us to care. Brianna closed her eyes, took a breath, let it out slow. Then she said it, quiet, to no one, to herself. I did the right thing. The fluorescent light buzzed. Nobody heard her, but she said it again. I did the right thing. Edmund Henderson didn't sleep that night. He sat in his private suite on the top floor of the Crestfield. Jacket off, tie loosened, a glass of water in front of him, untouched, because suddenly every glass felt like a question. At 11:47 p.m., the lab results came back. The compound in the champagne was a concentrated cardiac glycoside, plant-derived, fast-acting, designed to trigger cardiac arrest within 3 to 4 hours. Undetectable in a standard toxicology screen, the kind of substance you don't stumble into, the kind someone with pharmaceutical knowledge selects on purpose. Edmund read the report twice, then a third time. That girl, the one currently handcuffed in his hotel's basement, had been right. Not guessing, not paranoid. Right. Down to the chemistry. He picked up his phone. One contact, Nora Collins, 44, ex-federal investigator. No politics, no patience, no bullshit. She'd handled Edmund's security consulting for 6 years, and in that time, he'd never heard her speculate. Only facts. Nora, I need you at the Crestfield. Now. It's midnight, Edmund. Someone tried to kill me tonight. A catering girl caught it. And now she's in handcuffs, while the person who did it is still in my ballroom. I need you here. Silence. Then, 20 minutes. Downstairs, Denise Palmer was not sitting still. The moment security locked Brianna out of reach, Denise did what Denise always did. She moved. First, she called Judge Arthur Preston, 63, retired, old school. The kind of man who still believed the law was supposed to protect people, not manage them. Denise had catered his wife's birthday 3 years running. He owed her a favor. She was cashing it in. Arthur, I have a girl, 26, works for me. She saved a man's life tonight, and they've got her in cuffs because someone planted evidence in her locker. Which hotel? The Crestfield. Who's the man? Edmund Henderson. Long pause. I'll have a lawyer there in 40 minutes. Don't let them move her. Denise hung up, but she wasn't done. She walked back into the foyer, past the guests still lingering, past the string quartet packing up, straight to the family photo display. She stood in front of the portrait of Charlotte Henderson, studied the face, the chain, the pendant. Then she pulled out her phone, photographed it, opened a text to Brianna's number, typed one word. Connected? She hit send, knowing Brianna couldn't read it yet, knowing it would be there when she could. Because Denise Palmer didn't just protect her people, she armed them. 1:15 a.m., Nora Collins arrived. No makeup, no small talk, a laptop bag, and the federal-grade access badge she technically wasn't supposed to still have. She sat across from Edmund in the suite. He gave her everything: the timeline, the girl's words, the lab results, the vial found in the locker. Nora listened, didn't interrupt. When he finished, she asked one question. Who had access to the champagne service before the toast? Edmund didn't know, but the hotel security system did. Nora pulled the footage. 8 cameras, service corridor, kitchen, loading dock, staff locker area. It took her 43 minutes. And there it was. Camera 6. Timestamp 9:14 p.m., 12 minutes before the toast. Victor Ashland, walking into the staff locker area, looking left, looking right, opening Brianna's locker, placing the vial inside, closing it, walking out. 30 seconds. Nora froze the frame, zoomed in. Who is this man? Edmund leaned forward, studied the face. He'd seen him in the ballroom, briefly, at the edge, He was talking to Lydia. Nora ran Victor's face through her database. The name on the guest list was fake. His real identity? Victor Ashland, former pharmaceutical executive. License revoked 8 years ago for unlawful distribution of controlled compounds. Current financial records? Buried under 3 shell corporations, traced directly to Lydia Moore's family trust. Nora turned the laptop toward Edmund. Your future daughter-in-law tried to have you killed, Mr. Henderson, and she framed the only person who tried to save you. Edmund stared at the screen. The compound, the vial, the planted evidence, the fake name, the financial trail, all of it, leading to the woman his son was supposed to marry. He didn't speak for a long time. Then, quiet, almost to himself. Get the girl out of those handcuffs. 2:03 a.m. Most of the guests had left, but not all. The ones who stayed were the ones who smelled blood. The senators, the investors, the old money families who understood that when Edmund Henderson calls you back into a room at 2 a.m, something is about to change, and you want to be in the room when it does. Garrett and Lydia sat at the head table. Garrett, exhausted, confused, still wearing his engagement smile like a mask he forgot to take off. Lydia, composed, legs crossed, one hand resting on Garrett's arm, the other wrapped around a glass of water she hadn't sipped once. Edmund walked in. No jacket, sleeves rolled. Something different in his posture. Not the polished CEO who'd raised a toast 4 hours ago. Something raw, older. The version of Edmund Henderson that built an empire before anyone taught him how to smile for cameras. Nora Collins followed 2 steps behind, laptop in hand. Edmund didn't sit. Lydia, I'd like to ask you something. Lydia looked up, smiled. The same smile Brianna had clocked earlier, the one that performed warmth without producing any. Of course, Edmund, anything. Do you know a man named Victor Ashland? The smile held, but something behind Lydia's eyes flickered. A micro-movement. The kind of thing most people would miss. Edmund didn't miss it. I don't think so. Should I?
Silver hair, mid-50s. He was in the ballroom tonight. You spoke with him. Twice. Edmund, I spoke with a lot of people tonight. It was a party. Nora opened the laptop, turned it toward the table. Security footage. Timestamp, 8:47 p.m. Lydia leaning toward Victor Ashland near the east wall, whispering. Victor nodding. Then a second clip, timestamp 9:14 p.m. Victor entering the staff locker area, opening Brianna's locker, placing the vial, leaving. Then a third screen, financial records, 3 shell corporations, fund transfers from the Moore Family Trust to accounts controlled by Victor Ashland, dates going back 14 months. The room was silent. Lydia's smile didn't fade. It froze, like a painting left in the rain. I don't know what that is. I've never seen those documents. The compound in my glass was a cardiac glycoside, pharmaceutical grade. Your associate, the one you don't know, is a disbarred pharmaceutical executive. The money trail leads from your family's trust directly to his accounts. 14 months of payments, Lydia. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a project. Garrett's head turned slowly toward Lydia. The confusion was gone. In its place, something worse. Recognition. The look of a man who's just realized the person beside him is a stranger. Lydia, what is he talking about? Garrett, this is insane. Someone is setting me up, just like that girl. That girl, Edmund said, voice flat, is the reason I'm standing here. She identified a compound by sight that was designed to stop my heart. She had nothing to gain. She made $11 an hour. And your response, your first instinct, was to frame her for it. Lydia stood. The composure was cracking now, not slowly, all at once, like ice hitting warm water. You can't prove I just did, in front of everyone in this room. She looked around. The remaining guests, 15, maybe 20, stared back. Nobody moved. Nobody came to her defense. The senators who'd laughed at her jokes 3 hours ago studied their shoes. The investors who'd shaken her hand suddenly found their cufflinks fascinating. That's the thing about power. It doesn't have loyalty. It has proximity. And Lydia had just lost hers. Garrett stood. Slowly. He reached for Lydia's left hand. She flinched, thought he was reaching for her. He wasn't. He slid the engagement ring off her finger, set it on the table, didn't say a word, didn't need to. Garrett, please, don't. One word, the quietest, loudest word in the room. Craig Monroe stepped forward. Local police, called by Nora 20 minutes earlier, entered through the side door. Victor Ashland was already in custody in the lobby, looking considerably less confident without a gin and tonic in his hand. Lydia was escorted out. No screaming, no dramatic collapse, just a woman walking through a room full of people who used to admire her, and not one of them looked up. The security office door opened. A lawyer, sent by Judge Preston, stood on one side. Craig Monroe stood on the other. Craig didn't make eye contact as he uncuffed Brianna. Didn't apologize, just unclipped the metal and stepped back like she was a file he was closing. Brianna rubbed her wrist, stood, walked out. Denise was in the hallway, arms folded, eyes red. The toughest woman Brianna had ever known, standing there, with tears she'd clearly been fighting for hours. Come here. They held each other, tight. The kind of hug that says everything language can't. You did good, baby. You did real good. Brianna exhaled into Denise's shoulder. For the first time all night, she let herself shake. Edmund was waiting in the corridor. Alone. No security. No entourage. Just a 68-year-old man standing under fluorescent lights. The same lights they'd detained Brianna under. He looked at her. Not through her. Not past her. At her. I owe you my life. I don't say that lightly. Brianna's voice was hoarse.
I just didn't want anyone to get hurt. Edmund extended his hand. She looked at it. A billionaire's hand. The hand that signed deals worth more than her entire neighborhood. The hand that held a glass she'd knocked to the floor. She shook it. And in that corridor, under buzzing fluorescent tubes, between a mop bucket and a fire extinguisher, two worlds met as equals for the first time. Edmund turned to leave, then stopped. Because Brianna's phone screen had lit up. Denise's text, sent hours ago, was glowing on the lock screen. A photo. A portrait of a young woman in a white dress. Charlotte Henderson. And one word beneath it. Connected? Edmund stared at the screen. His face changed. Not the controlled shift of a CEO. Something deeper. Something that money can't manage. Where did you get that photo? Brianna hesitated, looked at Denise, looked back at Edmund. I know your daughter, Mr. Henderson. The air left the room. She goes by Chloe now, Chloe Davis. She's been coming to the community center where I volunteer. I've been helping her fill out food assistance forms and find shelter space. She paused. She doesn't know I'm here. She doesn't know I know who she is. Edmund's lips parted. No sound. Then, barely a whisper. She's alive? She's alive. And she's struggling. And she has a 3-year-old daughter named Rosie who carries a 1-eared rabbit named Captain. And she never once, not once, asked anyone for anything she didn't absolutely need. Edmund Henderson, a man who'd built a billion-dollar empire, survived a poisoning, and dismantled a conspiracy in the same night, sat down on a plastic chair in a service corridor, and broke. Edmund didn't move for a long time. He sat on that plastic chair, the kind you find in waiting rooms and government offices, the kind his daughter had been sitting in for months, and let the weight of it hit him. Brianna didn't rush him, didn't comfort him, didn't say, "It's okay." Because it wasn't okay. A man had let his pride erase his own child. That's not something you fix with a hug. She just stood there, present, the way she'd stood with Chloe that first day at the community center. Finally, Edmund spoke, voice raw. I cut her off when she married Daniel. I told her if she walked out that door, she'd walk out of this family. And she did. He swallowed. When Daniel died, I didn't know. I told myself she was fine, that she'd made her choice. But the truth, he looked at the floor. The truth is, I made it impossible to stay. And I never once went looking. Silence. Will you take me to her? Brianna shook her head, gently but firmly. That's not my decision, Mr. Henderson. It's hers. Edmund looked at her. For a second, she thought he'd argue. Billionaires aren't used to hearing no. But something in his face softened. The faintest nod. You're right. 2 days later, Tuesday morning, Elm Street Community Center. Brianna called Chloe the night before. Kept it simple. Someone wants to see you. You don't have to say yes. Who? Someone from a long time ago. Long pause. Brianna could hear Rosie singing in the background. Something about Captain going to the moon. Okay. 9:12 a.m. Edmund Henderson stood outside the community center. No driver, no suit, just a gray coat and hands that wouldn't stop shaking. He looked smaller than he did on television. Older. Like the building behind him had more structural integrity than he did. The door opened. Chloe stepped out, Rosie on her hip. She saw him. He saw her. Neither moved. 3 years of silence. 2 years of grief. A lifetime of pride. All standing in the 6 feet of sidewalk between a father and the daughter he threw away. Then Rosie, tiny, fearless, completely unaware of the weight of this moment, squirmed out of Chloe's arms, walked straight up to this stranger, held up a one-eared, stuffed rabbit. "This is Captain. He lost his ear in a war." Edmund knelt, took the rabbit, carefully, like it was made of glass. "Hello, Captain. Thank you for your service."
Rosie giggled. Chloe broke. Edmund broke. And on a Tuesday sidewalk, outside a community center with fluorescent lights and bad coffee, a family began finding its way back. Brianna watched from the window. She didn't go outside, didn't insert herself, didn't take credit. She just made sure the coffee was ready. 6 months later,
Brianna Wallace stood in a university lab. White coat, safety goggles, pipette in hand. Not borrowed. Hers. A full scholarship, funded by Henderson Capital's education grant, pinned to the corkboard behind her desk. She graduated top of her cohort. Gerald texted her a photo of the diner's specials board. He'd written in chalk, "Our girl did it." Across town, Chloe Davis walked into a hospital. Scrubs, badge, nursing license reinstated. She clocked in for her shift, and a colleague said, "Morning, Charlotte." She smiled, didn't correct them. She was learning to hold both names, learning that the girl in the white dress and the woman in scrubs could be the same person. Rosie started preschool. Real preschool, with finger paints and circle time and a cubby with her name on it. Captain came too. Still one ear, still a war hero. She told every kid in class his story. Nobody questioned it. Edmund Henderson sat in a board meeting at Henderson Capital. Same silver hair, same commanding presence. But on his desk, next to a stack of quarterly reports, sat a crayon drawing of a rabbit, signed in wobbly letters, Rosie. He and Chloe were rebuilding. Slowly, on her terms. Dinners on Sundays, sometimes awkward, sometimes silent. Sometimes Rosie filled the gaps with nonsense songs about Captain flying to Mars. Those were the best ones. Edmund was learning that reconciliation isn't a handshake. It's 1,000 small moments where you choose to stay instead of control. Because a 26-year-old catering server had taught a billionaire something no boardroom ever could. You don't earn someone back by being powerful. You earn them back by showing up. Tuesday afternoon, Elm Street Community Center. Brianna and Chloe, side by side at the same plastic table where they met, same fluorescent lights, same bad coffee. But this time, they weren't filling out Chloe's forms. They were helping another woman. Young, exhausted, holding a baby, hands shaking over page 1. The same look Chloe had 6 months ago. The look of someone trying to figure out if they were allowed to ask for help. Chloe slid the pen from her fingers. Gently. "Let me. I know these forms. I've been where you are." The woman looked up, eyes red, surprised, like she didn't expect kindness to come from a stranger. Brianna set a sandwich on the table. Casual.
"Diner made too many. You want one?" The woman almost smiled. Almost. The cycle continues, not because the system got better, but because people did. She didn't need saving. She needed someone to see her.
Man, this one got me. For real. A girl making $11 an hour, risking everything for a stranger. Everything. Think about that. Would you do it? If nobody was watching, if nobody would ever thank you, would you still step forward? Yeah. That's the question that keeps me up at night.